November 121 Mike, your turn. Taxiing 111.
Hi, I'm Mike Thompson, and welcome to 121 Point Mike Ground School. I'm continuing my series on avionics, and I thought you might like to talk to people. So in this video, I'm going to cover the comm radio. There's really not that much to it. Comm radios operate in the VHF part of the spectrum called airband, and the communication segment lies between 118 and 137 megahertz. Now, these aren't in whole megahertz numbers either, because that's simply not enough channels. So they use the kilohertz side, which is to the right of the decimal point here, to create more frequencies. Makes sense, right? There is one frequency, though, that you must know by heart, and that's the emergency frequency, sometimes called GUARD. It's 121.5. 121.5. 121 decimal 5. So that's 121 megahertz and 500 kilohertz. Now, if you have an emergency, how do you tune to that frequency, or any frequency for that matter? Well, I'm going to show you. It's really quite simple. If your radio is a new digital one, then you're just going to push the buttons or numbers to type it in. If you've got an older radio, then you're going to turn knobs. Radios have two concentric knobs, and the larger outer knob tunes the megahertz to the left of the decimal point, and the smaller inner knob turns the number to the right of the decimal point, or the kilohertz. Now, you can only tune the standby frequency, not the active one. So once you tune up the frequency that you want, you'll have to hit the swap button to switch it over to the active. Now you can listen and talk on the active frequency. You can now then tune a frequency and be ready to swap it over when required. The swap icon is a little double-headed arrow. Okay, so big knob for the left, little knob for the right. The standby frequency is really nice because you can't mess up your active one, and you can have your next anticipated frequency ready, and you should. If you're taxiing, you'll be on ground, so you should have your tower in standby. Then once you're on tower, you can have departure in your standby. Now, I've never flown in a plane that only has one comm radio. So for comm 2, you'll operate it in the same way with the tuning and the swapping, but on cross countries, you should have 1215 dialed into the active and monitor it as well with your audio panel. So you'll hear comm 1 and 2, but you'll only be talking on comm 1. Check with your audio control panel manual just to see exactly how you do that. And if you're staying near your airport, you can have the ATIS punched up on comm 2 so that you can quickly check on that as you're heading back to land. Now, if you're shopping for radios or something, you'll hear some talk about channel spacing. Remember I said earlier that the megahertz is to the left? Well, fractions of megahertz are kilohertz, and radios are spec'd with either 25 or 8.33 kilohertz spacing. Obviously, if the spacing is smaller, there are more communications channels available. But in the US, the 25 kilohertz is standard, and the 8.33 is for Europe, where countries are packed much tighter together. So in the US, you'd have something like 118.1, and the next higher channel would be 118.125. But we don't say 118 and an eighth, or any fractions for that matter. You say the whole decimal. You're not talking to approach on 134 and a quarter, or declaring emergencies on 121 and a half. When we're talking to people, you'll need to push and hold the push to talk button on the yoke somewhere, usually with an index finger. That's about all there is to actually operating a comm radio. Speaking on it's another matter. I've got a ground communications video for that though, that walks you through the basic technique, so go check that out. Tune the radio, swap it to the active, press a button, and speak. Just let go when you're done so that you're not stepping on other people and they can talk, just like a walkie-talkie. But go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. That'll certainly help me out, as we'll leave in a bunch of comments and engaging in lively discussions down below. I'm on Patreon now, and the link for that is below as well. And thanks for staying with me on 121 Point Mike.